On this episode of China Uncensored, the secret behind China's support of Syria. Hi, welcome to China Uncensored. Does anyone else have deja vu? I'm Chris Chappell. So, the United States is threatening military intervention against Bashar al-Assad's Syrian regime because, allegedly, they use chemical weapons. And we all know that U.S. claims about weapons of mass destruction are always reliable. So, that whole U.S. fighting another war in the Middle East aside, China's role in this whole thing is pretty interesting. I mean, first of all, no matter what, even if Assad is using chemical weapons, there is no way there will ever be UN support for military intervention. Why? Well, that's because of China and Russia. They're both permanent members of the UN Security Council and can veto any plan that comes through the door. And they're both pretty close with Damascus. So, right off the bat, if the US wants to do anything, they're going it alone. So, China is one of Syria's biggest trading partners. According to the International Monetary Fund, in 2009, trade between China and Syria was worth $2.2 billion. And it's not China buying stuff from Syria. This is mostly money going into the Chinese government's pocket. What money China is sending to Syria is for oil. China is expected to be the world's biggest consumer of oil before 2020, and 55% of all that oil is coming from the Middle East. But China can get by without Syrian oil. It's not that big of an exporter. So what really is behind the Chinese regime's support of Syria, or perhaps better framed, its objection to international intervention? Well, there are some uncomfortable comparisons. China has presidents, kind of in the same way Assad is the president of Syria. Both governments do really terrible things to their own people, and despite China's insistence that international disputes be settled through talks, they sure don't have a problem bloating their military budget and sending destroyers into disputed territorial waters in the East and South China Sea. So the Chinese government certainly doesn't want the international community to get any ideas, especially after what happened in Libya. In March 2011, the UN Security Council voted to implement a no-fly zone. And amazingly, China and Russia didn't veto it, even though everyone totally thought they would. They just abstained from voting. But then the no-fly zone kind of morphed into a, hey, let's overthrow Muammar Gaddafi's presidency, and the Chinese regime wasn't too happy about that. So China likes to have a say in international matters, but when it comes to governments or dictatorships that mistreat their own people, the communist regime says that this isn't the business of any other countries, because what those rulers do are their own internal affairs. Basically, if Assad is dropping toxic gas on the Syrian people, it's got nothing to do with anyone else, because whatever happens in Syria is their own problem to sort out. The Chinese regime toes the line that because if they say the Syrian crisis could be some kind of humanitarian problem that warrants international intervention, then it may seem a pretty uncomfortable precedent against itself for all the abuse, torture, and killing of innocent Chinese people it has been doing for the past 60 years. Then there's the whole U.S. military pivot to the Asia-Pacific region. China has been acting pretty aggressive in territorial disputes with its neighbors, and now that the U.S. is sending fleets to the region, the Philippines have all been acting like they can stand up to China now. But if the U.S. is drawn into another military quagmire without UN support, which China will most certainly see to, that might throw a wrench in that whole plan. But so what do you think? What is going to happen to Syria, and what do you think of China's reasons for objecting to an intervention? Leave your comments below, and be sure to check out China Uncensored's Facebook page, or you can follow me on Twitter, and check back again tomorrow for another new episode. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.